Hi, everybody. I know I'm honored, and I hope everybody here is. I'd like to welcome 14-year NFL veteran, humanitarian, Super Bowl champion, Walter Payton Man of the Year, Anquan Boldin. Anquan, it's a pleasure to meet you.
Likewise.
Tell us, in 2017, you walked away from the game that you loved and were clearly accomplished at it. A lot of success to focus on social justice efforts. Tell us what motivated you to do that.
Yeah, unfortunate for me, what motivated me was I had a tragedy in my family. I had a cousin who was killed by a law enforcement officer, which is the reason I stepped away from football and helped co-found the Players Coalition. My cousin Corey, he was a drummer in a band, and one night after one of his gigs on his way home, he broke down on the side of the road. Long story short, it ended up costing him his life by an undercover officer. So for me, it was a call to action. So that's the reason that I stepped away from football.
Okay. And you formed the Players Coalition.
Yes.
As a result. Tell us a bit about that. Obviously, we know where the motivation came from. But give us a bit of background on the coalition.
Yeah, so the Players Coalition is a group, well, it started out as a group of current and former NFL players working on social justice issues. But now it has grown to be over 13 leagues, over 33 colleges, more than 1,500 players. So it has grown way beyond my expectation.
Paint a picture for us what the early days were like.
In the Players Coalition, the earlier days were a lot of learning, I would say. Obviously, we entered into a partnership with the NFL, but in the earlier parts, it was us learning about the issues that were going on in our country in different areas. When you're talking about criminal justice reform, mandatory minimum sentencing, when you're talking about voting rights, all of those things we had to learn about before we were actually able to engage.
And how's the NFL been to deal with?
Initially, it was rocky.
Did they surprise you?
Yes. I know. So you have to think about us going to the NFL and asking for resources, money, us not having a track record in the beginning. So it was touch and go for a while, but I think we earned the respect of the NFL by doing things the proper way, and then bringing them alongside of us to let them know and show them what we were doing. The relationship now is great. They lean on us for a lot of things. They ask our advice for a lot of things. They see the work that we've been able to accomplish, getting 29, 30 pieces of legislation changed in the last 6-7 years. So
what does that process look like?
Which piece?
Getting these pieces of legislation. You guys are obviously not attorneys or that type of thing. Give us a little sense of what the process looks like.
I mean, that's
a lot of legislation.
It is, but it's having a great team around you. Again, it's educating yourself on the issues, meeting with the stakeholders, those who have the ability to change things, different governors, different senators, whoever that is in that space. And it's just shedding a light on the issues. There are a lot of things that if we say it out loud, that you wouldn't think happens in this country. Like, for example, in the state of Florida, we had 2 6-year-old kids arrested, taken to jail, right? And your eyes get big, and that's because that is not supposed to happen in our country. a lot of those things happen because we don't know. We're not
Right.
educated on it. But when you say it aloud, it raises eyebrows, and then it brings attention to it. And now we're in a position where we can change it.
Politically speaking, obviously, you have to have their support. Is there anybody that stood out for you that really helped you champion, like really championed your cause from the beginning? You know, whether it's a governor, whether it's a, you know what I mean, mayor.
I mean, we've had a lot of people to help us champion our causes. Even in the NFL, when you talk about different owners, you talk about the commissioner. They've been integral in helping us create change. You talk about the Patriots owner. His name is slipping me right now.
Robert Kraft.
Robert Kraft, but he helped us to raise the age in the state of Massachusetts for kids being arrested and convicted on certain charges.
Right.
We've also had Arthur Blank, who was instrumental. We've had Roger Goodell, who's been with us on different listen and learn tours. So we've had a lot of allies in the NFL offices.
What do you think the future is? What does it look like 5 years from now?
Hopefully it grows even more. Hopefully we have different athletes across different leagues. Like I said, which we have been able to do. We started off with, it was what, 5 of us? It's grown to over 1,500 players now. So like I said, it has exceeded my expectation, but hopefully it grows even more over the next 5 years.
Right. So the Players Coalition has grown to have representation across 12 leagues. This is as much as a statement as it is a question. With participation from more than 1,500 current and former male and female professional athletes, has also supported 23 colleges with student athlete engagement. How are you continuing to build that pipeline?
Well, let's continue to stay in the locker rooms. We have access to, I mean, obviously all of the NFL locker rooms, but we also are pushing towards colleges a lot more now, catching guys while they're younger. I definitely think it helps. When they come into the league, we're already in a position where they can use us as resources. But yeah, staying consistent in the locker rooms, being a voice, being a resource for both current and former players, I think is how we continue to engage.
Okay. And where it sits right now, you say you're up to 30 pieces of legislation now?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're at 30. More than 125 op-eds and letters to the editor to advocate for systemic change, to build awareness around key social issues. Really, it's become truly the leader in athlete activism. And I know we're getting into a different topic here in a minute, but we need more people like this in sports. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, I think so. Fortunately for us as athletes, we have a platform, and I think it's irresponsible of us if we don't use that platform for the greater good. So hopefully guys will continue to use that platform and create change throughout our country.
Do you find that's the majority of athletes that really want to get involved in doing things like this, to use their platform to create change? And we see so many stories about, you know, guys doing the wrong thing.
Yeah, I mean,
but you don't see enough of the good.
That stuff sells. But I think for the majority of guys, I think if you had to say, I would easily 95% of the guys do a lot of good in their community.
Outstanding. So let's switch gears here a little bit. You've got a new organization called Sport for Impact that houses athlete charities. Tell us about that, where the motivation has come from for that, kind of what it looks like.
Yeah, so Sport for Impact simply is helping athletes maximize their platforms. I know for me, I've seen a lot of guys who have wasted resources when it comes to wanting to give back. And for me, I want to help prevent guys from going down that road. I've had to bump my head a couple times in my own 501c3 non-for-profit, but just helping guys in that area. I know a lot of times when guys come into the league, the first thing they want to do is to give back. That's a great attitude to have, but a lot of guys don't have direction. If you ask guys, how do you want to give back? most guys can't really tell you.
Right.
It's more so, well, I want to do a camp here, or I want to do a backpack back to school drive, or a turkey giveaway, or something of that nature. So what I want to help guys do is actually pinpoint how they can be most effective. And then you also have the problem of when guys do come into the league and they want to start a nonprofit, they have no idea how to start it.
Right.
And then they entrust it.
Question I thought of as I was sitting here, prior to your family incident, the tragedy that happened, did you give this a lot of thought prior to that happening? Was this something that was always kind of in the back of your mind? I don't know what your charitable stuff looked like before that incident, but I'm curious as to how much that impacted you to motivate you to do all of this. It seems to me you must have had a mindset like that beforehand too.
Yeah, I did. I had a nonprofit. I started my first nonprofit in 2004. It was like going into my second year in the NFL. But when this happened, for some reason it hit different. So I've seen, and we all have, we've seen police brutality across our screens. We've seen African Americans being killed by police on TV, and I think we've all been sympathetic to it. We've all wanted it to stop, but I think when it hits your front doorstep, it hits differently.
Yeah.
For me, when it happened to my family, I could no longer sit by and say, like, that's unfortunate, or that's a sad thing. For me, I had to do something, even though I didn't know exactly what that was at the moment. I knew I had to do something.
Who did you rely on the most to kind of help? I guess help you evolve the idea, the thought process to start doing things like this?
Again, I had a team around me. Angela, I have my wife, who has been very supportive in the initiatives that we've tackled. So I've had people that are close to me who steered me in the right direction, who cheered me on, even encouraged me when I thought, this is impossible.
What are the opportunities? Talk a little bit about, obviously a very important organization, some of the opportunities for brands, teams, leagues, other foundations to other sports business leaders to get involved with this initiative.
Yeah, I think if there's any of those, any sports leagues, any organizations who want to get involved, we're very easy to contact. But I think in having those organizations behind us, I think it only enhances what we're able to do, the reach that we have. Again, we have the athletes, and I think having athletes is a big part of it.
Right.
It differentiates us from different organizations who don't have access to different athletes.
Right.
But I think when you do have the athletes, you have the ability to create that impact.
Right.
And then having those organizations come alongside of us and join us, I think it magnifies what we're able to do as an organization.
I don't know if you've given this any thought, and we'll open up the questions here in a minute, but if you look into the future, what do you want the legacy of Anquan Boldin to be? You've been a Super Bowl champion, all of that stuff. What do you want your legacy to be?
Yeah, for me, I've thought about that quite a bit. And for me, I want people to know me for what I've been able to do outside of football. I don't care if people ever remember me for what I did on the football field.
Right.
If people remember me for making a difference in the community, in this country, then I'm satisfied.
Excellent. Let's give a hand on that one. All right, so let's open it up to a few questions here. Okay, here we go. Yep.
From Concordia University, Irvine, I just have a few questions on what are your first steps to getting sports impact out there, marketing-wise? It seems like an amazing plan that you have set forward, and so just the few starting steps to create that and to, make an impact on the world.
Well, honestly, it's been a soft launch, but we've already had one organization come up under Sport for Impact. But for us, it's just making it known. Today is actually the first day that we've publicly talked about it. So that's the beginning step, just letting people know what's available, how we're able to help them, the resources that we have available at our fingertips. But that's pretty much it.
Mr. Tucker.
Hey, first of all, Anquan, thank you so much for spending your time with us today. We really appreciate you coming through.
No problem.
When you talk about all of the things that the athletes themselves can do, whether on their own or through your organization or through other organizations, I'm thinking about, them as the tip of the iceberg. Can you talk a little bit more about, you mentioned some of the leaders in the league, but what about the brands, the talent agencies, the other people that make up that whole ecosystem that normally when it's oriented towards creating business opportunities, there's an army of folks. Can you talk a little bit more about how some of these other stakeholders potentially can help make social impact alongside you?
Yeah, that's a great question, and that's something I've always thought about as well. Why has the onus always been on athletes? Obviously, athletes are front and center. Athletes are visible. Athletes have a platform that when they speak, people listen, which is great, but it's a great responsibility to carry. I think organizations, other businesses, I think they would be great if they came alongside the athletes. Because again, they can only help magnify the causes and the issues that these athletes are passionate about, even the things that they themselves are passionate about. Take two people who have the same, and this is what we've seen so much in the non-profit space. Everybody tries to reinvent the wheel. You're laughing, but it's true. I can be doing great work in the area, and instead of somebody coming alongside of me and helping me with that same issue, they try to go do the same thing, but in their own way. I think for us to be really impactful in this space, we have to start partnering. We have to start joining, because there may be resources that you have available at your fingertips that I don't have, and vice versa. But I think when we join those together, our impact will be even that much greater.
Hi, my name is Mateo. I'm a part of UCLA Law School. And Anquan, first I'd like to say, I know you said you don't want to be known for your football, but I'm a Baltimore native, and I would like to say thank you, because you brought
Can't
me a
get away
lot
from
of
it.
joy as a 12-year-old boy. But my question is, can you give us a actionable thing that you're working on right now, a project, and maybe talk to about the life cycle of the steps you and your team take to try to see through the project and make sure that it's a successful one?
One that we done was, just say in the state of Florida, restoring voting rights to formerly convicted felons. So I don't know if you know, but in the state of Florida, if you were a formerly convicted felon, your voting rights was revoked. And in order for you to get your voting rights restored, you had to go before a board. And 95% of the times, you were rejected. No matter if you were an outstanding citizen after getting out of prison, if you were a business owner, if you were back in society and being productive, people were still being denied their voting rights. So we had a group of formerly convicted felons, us involved with them, going door to door and letting people know that there were a lot of people who lost their voting rights even before they were at the age of voting. My brother was affected by that as well. My brother lost his right to vote before he could vote. Got a felony conviction. But it was a on the grounds campaign where we literally went door to door. Again, a lot of things happen in our country because we don't know about them. A lot of people in the state of Florida didn't know that these people had lost their voting rights and couldn't vote again. So we had Amendment 4 on the ballot where we voted to restore voting rights. And because of that campaign, going door to door, knocking on people's doors and letting them know what was happening, we had Amendment 4 passed in the state of Florida, which restored voting rights to 1.4 million formerly convicted felons. And had it not been for that campaign, you'll still have those people not being able to vote.
How you doing? I'm Keith Beasley, a first year at UCLA Anderson. And my question is, I played football growing up and in college, and I know a lot of athletes. A lot of my friends that made it to the league, they also want to have their own philanthropic organizations. Former players still be involved in that a lot. When you think about your organization, do you think there's value in partnering with individual player social organizations, or do you think you might want to go partner with the agencies, or would you want to build your own brand and equity first and just see where the world takes you?
I think there's real value in partnering with each individual. And the reason I say that is because, again, everybody is affected by something different. And I think when you have a person that is passionate about a specific issue, they're willing to do more work in that area. So for us, it's pinpointing what it is that you care about. What are you affected by? And once we figure that out, then we can go and we can connect you with other athletes who have the same mind as you, or different organizations who are pushing the same issue as you.
Hi, it's Brooklyn again. Nice to see you. You were just in London last week, and I'm just wondering if you could tell us a little bit about what you hope to do with the Premier League.
Yes, so we were in London last week and had a chance to visit with a couple of the Premier League teams. And they saw a lot of the work that we were doing with the Players Coalition, and they were trying to mimic the same thing in the Premier League. They have a lot of guys who obviously are athletes, but are afraid to or don't know how to jump into the advocacy space. So I was brought over to talk to a couple of the guys and show them how we started the Players Coalition, what that looked like, what that entailed, and how they can kind of model the same thing in their country.
I'm Maddie. I oversee NIL, or name, image, likeness, for UCLA student athletes. And I'm just curious how you would have approached your college experience differently if you had the same opportunity to leverage your platform before going pro, and maybe what your advice would be to current student athletes in this day and age.
Yeah, I mean, I tell college athletes all of the time, like, and I don't think college athletes really understand just how impactful their voices are. And I think because a lot of college athletes are young, they probably feel like they don't have the ability to voice how they feel. And they probably don't feel like people will take them serious. NCAA doesn't work without college athletes. And I've been saying this for years. A couple years ago, I had this discussion, and this was way before NIL. This was a conversation probably about 8 or 10 years ago, where we were talking about how college athletes were unsatisfied with how things were going. That if somebody came alongside of you and paid for a meal, that you would now be ineligible to play. And how that was unfair because the institutions were making millions of dollars off of the athletes. So they asked me a question, okay, if you were in college right now, how would you change that? And I said, it's simple. As a college football player, we would play the season, and you know, they picked the top 4 teams to go to college playoffs. I would wait till that happens, and when that happens, those 4 schools that are in college playoff, we would meet and we would say, unless you change X, Y, and Z, we're not playing. Immediately, you will get everything that you want because of all the TV contracts involved. They can't at that point not have college playoffs. So now it's either we cut off the system or we give the players what they want. And because the players run everything, they would have gotten everything that they wanted just by withholding their services. And that's how powerful a college athlete's voice is. So my encouragement to all college athletes, use your voice. Anything that you're concerned about, anything that you want to see change, your voice definitely matters.
My name is Arvin, undergrad student here at UCLA with Bryn Sports Analytics. And you mentioned athletes withholding their services. And back in 2020 in the NBA bubble, I think the Bucks and the whole league missed one of their games. They boycotted one of the playoff games. And so, as a football player yourself, you guys share the community with so many other teams. And so I'm wondering, with your foundation, has there been an effort to reach out to other teams, other sports in those cities and across leagues as a collaborative effort?
Yes, we have reached out to different organizations. I mean, it's a conversation that we had around, obviously, in the NFL when the whole kneeling thing happened. Obviously, players wanted to see change in the NFL. And that was a huge conversation. Are guys willing to withhold services? And to be honest with you, some guys are, some guys aren't. I mean, you have a lot of players who feel like they have a small window of earning potential. So if they withhold their services, they don't know how long that window of opportunity is for them. So some guys say no. And then there's other guys who say, well, it's not about me, it's about those who are coming down the pipeline after me. So those guys are more than willing to withhold their services. So honestly, I mean, you have a group of guys who obviously think differently. There are some guys who, and I say selfish, but not like in a selfish way. Like they're thinking more about themselves and their family and the ability that they have to provide for them family in that short window. And then you have other guys who are more big picture minded. You know what I'm saying? Thinking about the system as a whole and how do we change this not just for me, but for those who are coming behind me.
Thank you.
All right, I said at the beginning, I love it when I see athletes, teams, leagues using their platform for good. We need a lot more people like Anquan Boldin. Thank you.